Hello, good afternoon, traders. It is Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. I am here in Colombo, Sri Lanka. It's currently 12:15 p.m., and I'm going over the midweek technical breakdown. In my previous video I recently uploaded today, earlier on, I had broken down Euro GBP. In this video, I'm going to break down Gbpjpy and go over my analysis step by step. So let's get started with the breakdown from the beginning, from the top down. So our long-term bias on Gbpjpy is bullish. If you don't know why, just check back in my previous video. I have titles that have Gbpjpy in it, and I go over my entire analysis over why I have a bullish bias. But in this video, I want to just cut straight to the point and get into the intraday trading and enter a position based on my thesis. So right now we can see GJ is very bullish. It had recently broken out of a resistance region, which was around 153. Right after it broken out of that resistance region, it was actually set prior to 153. It was actually at 152 resistance. Then it made it up towards 153, and then it broke 153 and continued to make its succession up. So I do see the next area to be around 155, which is about 50 pips away. So price is on its way towards that on the daily. And if I were to make a long, that's where my next daily target would be. So first and foremost, let's mark that off, 155 resistance. That's close enough. I'm not trying to be exactly precise in this video. And right now, price has shown a rejection away from that on the daily. So that's a signal, because after a large bullish market that we've seen a couple days ago, price then went for a follow through, and the follow through went into a failure, and that's showing a weak day. So we need to get into the activity that's been happening for the past 3 days, and also see maybe the 3 days that was leading into this activity, so we can get an entire analysis broken down. But before we do that, I also want to highlight our last area that we've broken out of, and I said it was around here at 153. So that's going to be the last area that we recently broken out of. So that's going to be our current little area of support on the daily. So if you're looking at risk to reward, it's not a good risk to reward. You're risking 130 pips for 60. So it's showing that you're in a risk-seeking market, and at that point, I'm not really interested in looking for longs, but after the pullback maybe. If I'm suspecting a pullback, I'm already suspecting a down movement. Let me go to my charting tools, indicators, and delete this. I can get better visual. All right, so now I put it into the 4-hour. I said we're going to see the pretty much past week of trading activity. So today's the 13th. We're going to go all the way back to the 6th of October, and that's kind of where we've seen the first level of resistance being made and then tested, broken out to create the new level that we're currently using as support. So that's going to be the past week of activity. Looking into the 4-hour, we can see more price action. It went for a drive towards the upside. This was the previous area that we were looking to take price into from the lows. Price went for an attempt on the 5th. There was a small failure, and that picked up momentum later on in the day as the session switched over towards the U.S. session, and it closed above for the day. When we do have that 4-hour close, let's look at that was the 8th. So we're going to look at the daily close on the 8th. On the 8th, we can see that's the 7th. There's a bullish engulfing candle that actually, there's a Mariboso actually that closed above that, creating a new support zone on the smaller time frame. So when we do go back into the 4-hour from the 8th, we can see something similar. It created a support region right there. So that would be a support region for this time frame. And then this would be your breakout zone. So anything below this low would have been your stop loss, but that's 100 pips away. If you're a swing trader, I understand it is a good time for you, but as a day trader, that's too much risk for me. So I wouldn't have taken that trade because it's basically considered chasing the market for me. Now, I would actually look into a smaller time frame, like the 30-minute and below, to find my entry and my exits as a day trader. So if we go back to the 8th, we can see price action once again on a 30-minute time frame. It actually went into Sunday. So there's the 7th. Got to actually go back farther. All right, there's the 7th. It was trending up, then it made a slight pullback. The 8th happened. Like I said, there was a retest during the 8th, and then there was a continuation. You can see the candle bars that led into the continuation. That was a signal of a breakout. If you're trading this, then your ultimate stop would be about 70 pips. And so that would still be too high of a risk for me because I wouldn't have projected this so sudden. So what this is all telling me is basically that price is due for a correction. And when will that correction happen? We don't know. Only the market can tell. So for GJ, as of right now, I'm not interested in taking any longs because the risk is too high. But as far as a short opportunity, I don't normally counter trend, but it looks like there's a large area down below, as we can see, that could potentially be tested. Not only is the major area of support to be tested, but if that area gets broken, we're definitely going to see a drive towards the downside for about another 80 plus pips. So that support is about 154 pips away though. So that's not anywhere near. So if I'm going to counter this counter trend this move, I'm going to look into my time frame of choice, which is the 30-minute, and I'm going to look for a potential entry. Now, do we see any entries? As of right now, price has been climbing up in succession each and every time, and then it created an area of support that we see on the 11th and the 12th. The area of support was short-lived, and then we had a false break. It grabbed sell orders, and then that false break to the downside actually suddenly went back up, closed above that resistance, signaling new breakout. And that breakout happened, but it was short-lived, as we can see right here. So it is painting higher lows and higher highs, but it's doing that in a very congested area. When this happens, it's showing that the momentum is losing momentum. So as GJ begins to lose momentum, I would actually be looking for great short opportunities. My short opportunities for GJ as it loses momentum would actually be, I'll show you guys right now where my zones would be. I'll use my trend line so we can see. But here's one zone. It's very obvious that previous level of resistance, that's going to be a zone that we're going to have to retest. And there's going to be another area that we're going to have to hit after that. So if price can close below these lows of October 13th, so below today's lows, then we can potentially see a drive downwards. Also, I want to mark off the highs. So before I go forward, so there was highs, it was rejected, into nothing, virtually nothing. But then there was a bearish engulfing candle that happened shortly after, engulfing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the previous 30-minute candles. So this is going to be our signal for this time frame. We don't want price to go above this high. So then price went for a retest, and then it was a slight rejection right there. So let me go to my time frame again, take that and drag that over. So that's going to be our resistance level, just about around there. So if price goes about 5 pips above this resistance level, then I'm going to be out the market. So anywhere above here, above 154.7, we're going to be out the markets if we were to take a short from now. Now, I don't want to take a short just yet. There was a false drive to the downside on October 12th. So actually today, beginning of today, there's a drive to the downside, but there was no solid close below this pin bar. So to me, it was a false break, and that indicated no type of signal just yet. And after that, price did drive back up to the upside, and this is what we're seeing now. So if you were in that short, there's stops right here, there's stops right here, and there's stops potentially up here. In order for you to get lucky as a short seller down here, you have to kind of sit there and hope and pray for price to come back into your favor, and that's not how we trade. Now, I would not have entered that trade. I'm actually looking for a break of this rally that is currently happening before I enter that short trade into this position and finally getting lower. So at the moment, I'm in a no trade zone for GBPJPY just because it's kind of just really congested, and I need a solid, clear bias to really take this down. Let's just see potential targets if I were to take a short right here. So I said that this is current price, that's resistance, and this is support. Target number one would be, we could see some support being built right there. Price bounced off once, and then there's some supportive region right there. It did that multiple times, so this right here would be one area. Just about right there. So this would be the area of support right here. And the reason why I said that, because it needs to kind of clear through this entire area and close below there before we can see a possible continuation towards the downside. This isn't really a strong support to me, so I can already see this being broken. And so looking at the final picture, price has to drop about 50 to 60 pips downward to see a new bear market form. And at that point, I will then be leading everyone into the further narrative, which I said there's a low below at 153.2. So as long as you can get a short down below here, you can take it for a solid 80 plus pips to that low. So that's the bias on GJ as of right now. Let's go back out, take a step back to the upper time frame so we can see how everything looks. You can't really tell what's happening in the intraday. Got to move this a little bit. There we go. Can't really tell what's happening on the intraday based on the 4 hour. And so let's take a couple steps back. If you were to go long based off of the break of the high, and you would not only be sitting through drawdown wondering what's going on, but eventually, if you get lucky, price will go in your favor, but you don't know why because you don't see nothing above. And if you still just wait and respect your rules and stay disciplined, unfortunately, you still might end up getting punished because you didn't reprice properly. And intraday-wise, this is a lot of pips. So that's why I said for a swing trader, maybe you can hold this for a certain duration, but as a day trader, it's just way too many pips and way too far away for us. So that's where I'm be looking. Let's just end this video. Let me go into the 5-minute time frame so we can currently see what's happening on the 5-minute. We see resistance, then it made clear support. This is the region that we're going to mark off as well on the 5-minute. I don't really have any more tools, so what I'm going to do is actually just keep drawing trend lines. So I have another region right here. I'm actually going to change the color of these just so we can keep it nice and sweet. So the trend line on this one is going to be, let's make it orange. So I want it to be a darker color so I can see it more clear. And make the trend line red. Make it a little thicker as well. All right, so that's one area of support that I would like to see get broken. And then if obviously it did break that area of support, it came back and tested it as resistance. That's what we currently see. And then, look at this, a nice little breakout on the 5-minute. Bag chasers would be happy right now. I would like to see that reaction, though. I'm not super convinced. This is leading into the London breakout. Let's see, is there any other region? There's a region of resistance right there. It was tested once, rejected. It was tested twice, rejected. Tested 3 times, rejected. So this is a significant area of resistance right here. I'm going to actually mark it up on my time frame. Don't worry about price moving along right now. It's either going to come back or keep going. I'm not chasing the market, but all right. So we see that happening right now. This is a move happening on the bigger time frame, and it's leading buyers, it's inducing buyers, like I said, leading buyers directly into that 154.5 resistance, around 154.6. So we have to see the 15-minute reaction against this resistance to get some sort of signal. If we see that 15-minute reaction, which looks like it could be building that bias over the course of the next 30 plus minutes, we could see a solid candlestick pattern rejecting that. It'll be enough for us to get in and take that short towards the downside, like I had originally explained, with the bare minimum stops. I would have about a 16 pip stop for a potential target of 50 pips and beyond. So that is my thesis on GJ. I have to wait. Let's just take a couple steps back so we can have much clarity. Let's go back into the 5-minute. I explained that I don't do the 1-minute time frame because it's just too fast moving for me at my level of experience. But what we would like to see now is a closure below this. I call this a zone. So not only the area, the point of resistance, but I would like to see it close back below this zone by about 5 pips. So right here is where I would be looking for a sell entry on GJ. So let me get to my default settings, 0.6 on GJ, and put my sell stop right around here. So this is where my sell stop would go on GJ. Now my stop loss would simply go a few pips above this high that we currently see, giving me 28 pips total. So let's just do this. $154.69 is going to be my stop loss for this pair. Okay. So now that that stop loss is placed, we can see it's clearly painted on the chart. Nothing is going to convince me of a downtrend if it continues past that high. It respects our resistance zones that we just made, or that I just made, and it goes in line with the thesis of the storyline. Yes, it's overall bullish. It's still going to break out and continue towards the upside, towards weekly chart highs, and possibly even higher. I do have a potential target if it continues on up, and that's going to be around 161. That's about 500 to 600 pips away. So when that time comes, we will discuss that. But as of right now, we're just going to discuss this current move that I'm currently playing. So now if we do get a stop above there, like I said, I want a potential target. So these are minor supports. So I do believe price is going to break these minor supports throughout the day. But since I was able to read it from the smaller time frame, which was a 5-minute, I was able to get my entry much higher up than if I were only able to read the larger time frames. So now I have my entry much higher up. My stop is much better risk. Remember, before I had told everyone that I was going to risk maybe a total of 70 pips or so. Now I have an even better entry, saving me an additional 40 pips. So I might take partial profit around these lows and then continue the trade down towards 153 lows, giving us a total of 130 pips. Now, on the day, if you go and look at the GJ daily ATR, we can see that today it moves on average 117 pips per day. That's very volatile, and that's a very nice amount of pips to catch per day. So for me, it's not that much when you're looking at the time frames. Let's get back. When you're looking at the ATR based on the daily, that's a plenty of pips for me to go down. So knowing that, do I want to make my target 131 pips, or do I want to make it within the daily range? Honestly, if that's my only area, that's probably where I would put my first TP, and at this point, we could look for potential longs back towards the upside if it does build that bias, or we're going to see price continue to drive towards the downside. Now, if price does continue to make its move to the downside, what I suspect on seeing next is this. This is going to be his first area of support and ultimately driving it down to October lows or October 6th lows. And that's an additional 190, 200 pips. So let's mark that up. And this is the zone. So this is the start of the zone. And this is the end of the zone. And so now we have a clear outlook and a path to take our trades on all aspects, whether it goes up or down. We know what's going on with the markets. We have a directional bias. We have a foundation for everything. And wow, look at that. Just as I was speaking, it's making a evening star. This closes on the 5, bearish engulfing. And if this gets triggered right before the London session breakout, that could indicate the surplus of sellers towards the downside, pushing momentum into my trade, backing up my bias and thesis, getting it stronger and stronger until that target is reached. So I did not put a TP down just yet, so I need to do that right now before I end the video. My TP for this one is going to be, I don't know, I'll put it right here around 153.472. And that's pretty much it, guys. It's as simple as that. 91 pip target with a 30 pip stop, giving me a 3-to-1 reward to risk ratio, which is an excellent trade opportunity, one that I'm willing to take. And that's it. So we will follow up if this either hits profit before the end of the week or at the end of the week. Hope you guys got some great insight on this pair, and I hope you all have some great trades this week. Peace.